welcome to Saturday Morning Cartoons, the Collider Weekly podcast for all things animation, including reviews and interviews, coming to you from Rico's Roughnecks. I'll be your co-host, Sean Paul Ellis, and joining me from Clandathu, my co-host, Dave Trombor. David, how's it going, buddy?
Doing good, bud. Other than this bug problem here, doing fine.
Yeah, what's going on? Because I noticed kind of behind you, there's a lot of creepy crawlies.
Yeah, it's global kind of bug pandemic, I guess you'd call it. Now, technically, I think it is their planet to begin with, and we kind of showed up after the fact. But, potato, patata. Yeah, a lot of bugs to deal with. Just man-killing bugs of all different kinds, all different sizes. Questionable animation. But other than that, yeah, it's been fine. How are you doing? I'm assuming you come from Earth?
I'm coming from Earth, from the Terran Federation.
Nice.
We are 700 years in the future from where we are right now, and guess what? We have finally now all gotten our crap together, and we're working together as just one big planet.
I don't know. I would imagine that 700 years in the future, the animation technology would have progressed somewhat beyond the limits of the late 90s, early 2000s. Did we regress at some point?
I've thought about this. If you are saying that the animation in today's cartoon, which is Roughnecks, Starship Trooper Chronicles, if you're saying that it's not great, you might be asking yourself two questions.
Yeah.
One, did this come from Canada?
Sorry, Canada.
Yeah, sorry, Canada. Two, was there some degradation in CGI when they sent it back from 700 years in the future? Is there some Terminator time travel from the future to the past problems with, say, media, like a DVD,
just
or
signal
just
loss.
CGI in general?
Yeah,
right.
Just fidelity. It's really difficult to keep through the time stream.
I have to imagine in the future we've completely overcome the Uncanny Valley. All CGI just looks like it's perfect representation.
It's just deep
of
fakes.
humans.
It's just 100% deep fakes.
Yeah.
You can't tell, reality from fiction.
And then as you were to send it back in time, you just thought, "Oh man, this is not gonna de-age well."
No.
I guess.
Yeah, it doesn't de-age.
Re-de-age?
I don't know. I can't think from future brain to come back here. It's too much, man. It's too much. Why are we doing this to ourselves?
This was a listener suggestion.
That makes more sense.
This is a listener suggestion.
A legally binding listener suggestion.
It's
now
a legally binding, 100%. I have a quick question
Shoot.
for you.
Yeah.
Are you a fan of Starship Troopers, just in general? Tell me about your Starship Trooper experience.
Well, I enlisted straight out of high school.
Oh boy.
But then during a live fire exercise, I accidentally... No spoilers. No, I would say I'm a fan.
How can you spoil this movie? It came out so long ago.
You'd be surprised. I would say I'm a fan, but then actual fans would come out of the hive and just be like, well, have you read the book? And have you watched every movie that's come out? And have you watched the entirety of this series? And honestly, the answer is no. I've pretty much seen the Paul Verhoeven movie. I haven't read the Heinlein book, even though I'd love to. And this is kind of my first brush with the series itself, for better or worse. So I would say that, yes, I'm a fan as far as what I've seen so far. But how about you? What's your experience with it? That's not good.
Disappointing. This is going to be disappointing for nobody. And it's probably going to be a surprise to nobody. I have seen every single movie.
Get out of here.
I've seen all three of the major live action movies that they've had that have come out. I've also watched Trader of Mars, and I've read the book.
Wow. I had no idea, but this series is new to you.
This series, I knew that it existed.
Yeah.
I knew that Roughnecks, Starship Trooper Chronicles existed. I did not watch this. So this is really my first foray into this. I also know that there is an animated film that they have that's called Invasion.
Right.
Starship Troopers Invasion. And it's very weird because I want to say I watched it, but I'm having a hard time. I almost need to go back to IMDb. At first glance, I don't remember it. I remember everything else about all the other ones that were there. Read the book. Starship Troopers, the Verhoeven film, anytime it's on, or let's say because I don't have television and I cut the cord,
Sure.
If I'm scrolling through Netflix and it pops up and it says, "Do you want to know more?" I always want to know more.
Exactly.
I am actually, this Netflix got me the other night. Wasn't even talking about being able to do this cartoon for the show. Just like perusing, looking to see if I can find something while I was doing a little kitchen cleanup.
Yeah.
Guess what? Netflix
It's popped up.
got my back.
Nice.
They knew. do you want to watch Starship Troopers again? The answer is yes.
Now,
it's always yes.
Do they have all of the movies on there? I know they don't have this series on there, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but
I don't think they have Hero of the Federation or Marauder on there.
Okay.
And I remember when Marauder came out in 2008, I still had Netflix on DVD. And I put that to the top of the queue and was like, send me that Casper Van Dien goodness. I want it now. Nice. I want to be able to watch it.
See, now this is why I didn't call myself a fan, quote unquote, because you are kind of the super fan here because you've seen everything except for this series. So you're going to be kind of my like measuring stick, the meter stick of how this series is and if we need to keep it or not.
As we mentioned, what also is interesting is that this came from a listener suggestion. Oh, buddy.
We really dug ourselves a deep one on this.
We really did. This is the highlight and in some cases the low light for all of us on this show.
True.
Honestly though, we really do love doing this. And we had Aaron J call in and recommend that we watch Roughnecks, Starship Trooper Chronicles.
Yeah.
So let's hear from Aaron J in his own words. Aaron J, take it away.
Okay, it's your boy Aaron J with a question. What do Casper Van Dien and Clancy Brown have in common? Well, besides being two of the sexiest men alive, they also share the distinction of being part of the cast of Starship Troopers. Now, what this has to do with Saturday morning cartoons? Easy. They had their own Saturday morning cartoon in the form of Roughnecks, a Starship Trooper Chronicles. My experience was this is one of those shows they showed at 6 a.m. early in the morning where I grew up, right before the regular Saturday morning lineup, and it was weird. Again, I stick with the trend of hyper-violent movies turned into kids shows. One day we'll figure out why they do that. Thanks, y'all. Look forward to seeing what y'all think of the Starship Trooper cartoon, as I affectionately refer to it. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Aaron J. I want to say, if there's anybody that I'm now going to start referring to as it's your boy, it's you, Aaron J. 100%.
You're our boy.
100% you. So
I love that Aaron was like, he recommended this cartoon, but then also was just kind of like, he gave us kind of a caveat of just like, check your expectations, but give it a watch. We'll see what you think.
He also gave some context, which I love too, about this, in addition to his unbridled confidence coming out of the gate of just like, it's your boy, Aaron J. You know me. I'm back. Talking about the 6 a.m. cartoon.
Yeah.
Dave, I don't know about you. I watched a lot of cartoons at 6 a.m. on school days.
Usually with a bowl of cereal. Yep.
Right. And so 6 a.m. cartoon, I love it. I love the fact that he even stresses it's very weird. And I love the context of saying it's very weird to see a 1997 movie that was violent adapted into a kid's cartoon. Surprise, surprise. Not the first time and not the last time that we're going to do this.
No, and I don't think we've watched a RoboCop cartoon. I'm assuming they had one.
They have one. They have a Rambo cartoon. Guess
Rambo
what?
Cartoon.
Guess what? If you're saying to yourself, man, I remember RoboCop cartoon and I remember Rambo. Ooh, don't make that recommendation to us over social media or in a comment section on YouTube. Because guess what? We're going to read it, but we're not going to record it. If you want to do that, if you want to recommend a cartoon, go to the bio in any of our social media accounts, click on the Linktree link. There's a second button. It's going to take you right to our suggestion form, which has our phone number, 202-681-4406. Don't write it down right now. It's in the show notes. We got you covered. Call that number. Tell us that we should watch RoboCop and Rambo. And guess what? We're getting low right now on listener recommendations. So if
are you sure? Are we?
We have a couple more.
Okay.
So if you call in and say this, there's a real good chance that we're going to get to it in the next couple months to be able to hasten. We have made a commitment. And when I say a commitment, we have a legally binding agreement with our cartoon lawyers that we have to watch these cartoons. So if you call in, we will 100% review your cartoon. If you throw it into the form, there's a good chance that we might look at it. Some of you have actually suggested cartoons that we've already watched. So just go back and check out the back catalog, which is fair. But if you call in, we will guarantee that we will watch that cartoon.
Now, I got a question for you. This doesn't really have to do with legally binding cartoon laws.
The only thing I want to talk about, Dave.
For the rest of the hour.
Yeah.
So there's a RoboCop cartoon. There's a Rambo cartoon.
Yeah.
Makes sense in a weird way. There's no Predator cartoon, is there? Has Predator ever popped up? Has there ever been an Aliens animated series? There's no Terminator animated series, as far as I know.
That's a good one. Maybe if our listeners know out there, they can call us at 202-681-4406.
We can't Google from inside the booth.
Yeah, right.
You know what I want to do, though? Like, if they don't exist, I'm just going to skirt the copyright ownership issue, and we're just going to make our own versions of, like, 80s grainy 3x4, format, like Grindhouse cartoons. I think that's what we're going to do next. Yeah, it's going to be a good time. We're going to use RoboCop and Rambo as a template. You're listening in on the business here on the podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
This is the business.
Not weird at all. But
No.
I will say, you know who's all business?
Who's that?
Our buddy Bobby Anthony.
Yeah, he is. We call him Business Bobby.
Business Bobby is going to give us, I like that. I actually really like that.
You do like that? I did something right.
Perfect. You got it. You nailed it. Knocked it out of the park. I'm glad you called it out. You Babe Ruthed it in advance. Here we are. Business Bobby anthem. Business Bobby is going to break down Roughneck, Starship Trooper Chronicles. He's going to give us a synopsis. So Bobby, Business Bobby, take it away.
Give us the business.
Based on both the film and the novel by Robert A. Heinlein, this series follows the exploits of a squad of troops during the Psychon Bugs War. In this adaptation, Razak's Roughnecks fight in a war of survival against merciless alien invaders. Facing constant danger, they are the ones who have to do the thankless task of fighting the enemy head-on, and for the sake of humanity, they must prevail.
Thank you for delivering the business, Bobby. Appreciate it.
Love it.
Perfect.
Now we got to ask.
Yes.
Where does Bobby fit into this
Sky
universe?
Marshal.
Is that the top?
Sky Marshal of the Terran Federation.
Wow.
Top of the chain.
That's the top of the chain.
Because I'll say this. You hear Bobby's voice. If you had to hear somebody in a military setting deliver a calm, cool, collective, and stern message to you.
Confidence.
That's the voice. That's the voice that I'd be like, yeah, I guess I'm going to go fight giant bugs now.
I'll just do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Pretty much like even in the show, like sometimes I get confused and Bobby will do the synopsis for it and I just follow whatever he says without thinking about it. I just kind of like snap to attention, get in line, and just do whatever he says, which is problematic sometimes. But for the most part, it's okay. So yeah, I agree. We're in agreement on that one.
Yeah, I like that.
I feel like in this world too, isn't it like the military is kind of like the ruling class? There's government, but aren't they more like puppet government, or do I have that wrong?
No, I mean it's a federation, so I mean, between all the different countries that they have that are in the world, but it's, from my understanding, they're again, in the movie, they talk about the idea that if you serve, you're able to gain citizenship.
Right.
And citizenship allows you to vote. It allows you to have additional, let's say,
rights and privileges.
Yeah, exactly.
Sure.
So, I don't know what the different like cultural classes that they have.
I know that there's some like class conflicts and stuff within the characters that we have within the Federation themselves, because when you enlist, you can either be a grunt, you can be a sort of a leadership role, what do they call officers, or you can be in sort of like Neil Patrick Harris's character in the original movie, where he's kind of in like, the think tank. He's in the R&D. He's in the science and research sort of wing of all that. So I always like that, but I just never got a good sense of what the wider kind of world was like. Sort of like in the Ender's Game franchise where, there's the military kind of federation that battles against these bugs too, but there's a lot of political kind of national and government stuff that goes on too. So I wasn't sure if it was similar or not.
Right. So from my understanding from the book, the idea is that there's citizens and then there's civilians. Everyone is a civilian until 18, and then you can pick if you want to enlist for 2 years in federal service. Okay. And 2 years in federal service guarantees you citizenship.
If you survive, which is, I mean, in this world is pretty tough.
Yeah.
If you don't die in boot camp, there's a good chance you're not coming back from space.
Well, true. The challenging thing, and what maybe a listener can help me remember this, some of the finer points of this, is that civilians are not discriminated against.
Okay. So it's not like a low class. It's just...
Right. It's not a low class. It's just you get advantages if you are... Okay. If you serve the 2-year military term. And I guess maybe one of the particular kind of things that they talk about is that Johnny Rico, or Juan Rico is his actual real name, Juan Rico, his family is rather well off. and noted, despite the fact that his father did not serve to become a citizen, that he is just a civilian and remained a civilian.
Interesting.
And I think that's also reflected in the movie as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of those kind of ideas of like, where did you come from? What is your family? How hard did you work to get here? How, what did you have to do to get your position? There's a lot of those interesting kind of like character moments that flesh stuff out without explicitly stating it every time. But yeah.
And I did, to kind of help you out, I wanted to kind of give you, there are, I did a little bit of research very quickly, and there are 4 groups that they had that were in the military units within the book.
Okay.
Do you want to know what they are?
Yeah, definitely.
Would you like to know more?
I would. Click that
If you're
button.
tired of this now, it's never going to get any better. Yep. There's the mobile infantry.
Right.
Which is where they have the powered armor suits that are not really featured in the movies until the 3rd movie, which is called Marauder.
Interesting. Okay.
And they kind of talk about the Marauder as being like a large, like mobile infantry suit, a large power armor suit.
Like Exo Squad.
Think about Exo Squad, or even Ripley at the end of Aliens with the power loader. Very kind of similar idea.
So it's kind of like we've got like a Halo kind of suit, but then that is more of a power mech suit.
Correct.
Okay.
That's from my understanding. I think one of the interesting points is that the powered armor suit is kind of shaped a little bit like a primate, like it has like a larger kind of like anchored front 2 arms.
Yeah.
And that's where when you hear a lot of the mobile infantry refer to each other as apes, the powered armor suit sort of looks like it's a primate, like it's very primal in a sense. So that's where that comes from in terms of the movie, which is very heavily described in the book a lot.
Okay.
These things are like difficult and challenging to navigate inside of. There's also the Canine Corps, which is a reconnaissance
Canine
unit.
Corps, okay.
Not really like super. They're like modified dogs. They're like GMO dogs.
So they're biological dogs. They're not like robot dogs.
They're derived from dog stock, is what it says.
What a description. All right.
Yep.
I'm going to put that in my Twitter profile too.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen that in any of the movies or series or stories.
I don't think so either.
Interesting. I would like to see that. But
right.
Yeah.
They do have an area that they talked about that is clairvoyant and psychics, which we see in the movie. They talk about that a little bit in the book.
That's it's only really weird. Yeah.
It's very bizarre because the movie seeds the idea early on. The book really only talks about it once.
Okay.
Like towards the end.
That's like new type Gundam stuff like we talked about last week. It's like
a little bit.
Clairvoyant new types.
Yeah. And then we have engineer.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Like NPH.
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
So
I would be split. Where would you join if you had a choice? I think they test you and they put you in a specific spot, right?
I'd be foolish to say I didn't want to be a psychic or a clairvoyant. Like that just seems.
Is it something you can just like, I want to be that, or do they have to test your aptitude for it?
No, I mean 100%. I know if I tested into this, I'm straight up a Neo dog. I'm a Neopet Neo dog. That's what I'm gonna
just enlist in the Neopets. I'd be okay with that too. I would actually be torn between the Canine Corps and the engineers, I think.
Okay.
Because I'd want a good old pupper.
And then the final part of this is that there's the Navy that actually pilots ships.
Oh, right. So the pilots are a separate class.
And it's interesting to note that a majority of the pilots are all female.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Interesting.
Which is a little bit what we see with Carmen.
Yes.
In the movie as well.
Yeah.
So.
And in this series, believe it or not.
Gang, I'm ready to talk all about this.
I thought we were done. I thought that was it.
We're not gonna talk about the cartoon. Let's just talk about everything about the book. The book is excellent. If you read the book, I think suddenly, Dave, you would have a newfound appreciation for the movie as well. And I don't think there's like a specific order. I don't think you need to read the book and then watch the movie. Because I didn't. I watched the movie hundreds of times and then I went and I read the book.
Okay.
So yeah, I think you would enjoy it.
You might argue where this series fits in that particular order, though. So we'll see.
I have questions, which is a great segue to say, let's talk about Roughnecks, Starship Trooper Chronicles. Let's get into the good, the bad, the LOL. Is this a spaghetti western from Clint Eastwood? 100%.
Sci-fi spaghetti western.
We're going to talk about sci-fi spaghetti. We're going to talk about what's good about sci-fi spaghetti and what we like about it. We're going to talk about the bad. Talk about things that really didn't resonate, that we don't like, sauces that are not good on space spaghetti.
Yeah.
And then we're going to talk about the LOL, maybe some goofs or some mishaps that Dave and I have had while eating spaghetti space westerns.
Yeah, this all makes sense.
Yeah, none of this is confusing at all. We do want to kind of put in a caveat. We're
Yeah.
talking about this series. There are quite a bit of episodes, and there are people who really still enjoy and watch this cartoon, and we get that. A bummer about this is that it's very hard to find.
I don't know where you guys are finding them, unless you literally just own them on DVD or maybe even VHS at this point. But yeah, they're hard to find.
They are hard to find. We were able to find one episode off of Dailymotion, which is evidently episode 9.
Sure, maybe.
So if you're playing along at home, you could find probably episode 9. I think maybe episode 10 on Dailymotion.
I think they had 8, 9, 10 maybe. But as Sean mentions here, they're flipped, so they're inverted, which honestly doesn't change things too much, except some of the lettering.
It hurts.
It hurts to watch, but it honestly doesn't change things too much. However, the highest rated episode was, I believe, the series finale, which was one of the 4 clip shows. But we couldn't find that. We couldn't watch that. So we watched another clip show, possibly episode 8, possibly episode 9. I don't know which one it is. But maybe you'll, listeners out there, maybe you'll know which one it is based on what we talk about in the next few minutes.
So, Aaron J., I hope you're paying attention.
Sorry,
I hope you're enjoying this. If you know where to find these online, let us know.
It's
Again,
too late.
We're talking about all of this, recognizing that a lot of time,
Yeah.
energy, experience, passion,
Canadian money.
dedication goes into making this cartoon. We're making our snap judgments based off of one single episode that we've had a chance to watch.
Right.
If you disagree with us, tweet at us. Let us know. Send us some of these files so that we can watch them.
Sure.
I legitimately would not hate that. So let's calm our minds and get into our
Focused,
powered armor
centered.
suits. Let's get into our Exo Squad style suits, Dave. And let's get ready for this. The good for Roughnecks. How are you feeling? What had an impact for you?
Yeah, so the title, first of all, as soon as you were like, well, let's talk about this week, I'm already excited because I know this from pop culture, from Paul Verhoeven's movie. So I was like excited to see some more stories set in this universe. I also knew that there was a passionate fan base for it. There's like extensive Wikipedias on this series. So I know that at least one person put in a lot of time with really like dedicating time and effort to all those facts and all those figures and the character breakdowns, plot breakdowns. But there's also kind of a cliffhanger with this too. So I was curious just to see what the fuss was really all about. But for me, it's great to play in the Starship Troopers universe a little bit more. And I think it's probably the same for you. Is that fair?
That is. I love being able to dive back into the lore of this show. There's so much involved in this universe. There's so much even that they hint at and they talk about in the book that doesn't necessarily translate to the movie as well. Just a quick case in point. The first battle that takes place in the book is against something called skinnies, and you don't really know what they are. But presumably they're not bugs.
Interesting.
Or they're not bugs as a part of like that entire campaign that's available. So there are different wars, presumably, that they are fighting out in outer space against other extraterrestrials. So
well, no, that's interesting because I thought it was mainly just Terrans versus the bugs. That's what I was like led to believe, but I guess not.
That's why the book blew my mind, Dave.
Interesting.
A lot of stuff going on.
I had to learn how to read.
I think it's very interesting to see familiar characters such as Rico and Dizzy and Carmen and even Xander that we have that pops up at some point to see all these characters and sort of fill in some of the gaps in terms of their 2 years in service.
Right.
Because if we're led to believe anything, it's just there's a football game, they enlist, things happen, people get injured, and then now Rico is in charge of an entire squadron of Rico Roughnecks, and they are doing great. And there's Neil Patrick Harris showing up at some point with some psychic stuff. Yeah. And that's the movie. And you're like, that happened real fast.
It really did.
Really
it
did.
really did.
So you have to think, within that time, or at least, you definitely have the consideration in the movie of Dizzy Flores going career.
Yeah.
And then you eventually have Rico deciding that he wants to go career, as well as also Carmen. So
and you've got Razak in here too, right? That was Michael Ironside in the movie.
Exactly.
Awesome character, awesome inclusion here, and really, it's a different voice cast. I think they do a great job. It's another one of my good points. There's some pretty decent acting. The writing's not always the best, but they do a good job with it. But that's one character that also kind of translated the live action movie persona into the series pretty well.
Right. And I love being able to pick up with those characters that you're familiar with, explore a little bit more in this universe. And in terms of the storytelling for this, I know you said the writing is not terrible, but I mean, it's. I think sometimes there's challenges with coming into existing IP and sort of blowing some of that out a
Sure.
little bit more. Uh, Hopefully, they didn't feel restricted in that universe. I mean, I think that they had seems like they had fun with it, and the framing device that they use is Rico is floating in space. He has 4 hours of oxygen
Yeah.
left, and he gets blasted off course from a plasma blast as he's descending down to a planet in a powered armor suit. He gets thrown off course. He's kind of spinning out of control, and he does a bunch of flashbacks. So for me, if this is the first episode that I'm getting, I get a nice taste of a lot of different things that kind of happen. So if they're trying to do a clip show, they could do worse.
True. It was just, I think this isn't a bad. This is still in the good section for me. I liked how they put the clip show together because it wasn't
Yes.
just them sitting around the table, which they may do this and it would actually be okay if they did that too. But there was a reason we were revisiting these moments because Johnny was thinking about his time spent with these individual characters and just kind of his life flashing before his eyes kind of thing. So it was nice to be able to go back and revisit those moments, especially us seeing them for the first time, which was a good sampler at the buffet table of Starship Troopers. It was just sometimes a little difficult to follow. And sampling that writing, sometimes certain segments work better than others.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree. Anything else for you impactful? I know you mentioned sort of some of the voice acting and kind of some of the storytelling. I thought that the audio quality of a lot of the voice acting, which can sometimes, when you have people doing long monologues and talking for extended periods of time, I think it can kind of end up maybe sounding crappy. I think that this ended up being pretty good.
That was pretty good. There were a lot of other things kind of just on the technical side that I liked about it. So this is a CG animated series, and we'll talk more about that in the next section. But there were some really standout points here. I love the bug effects, the bug design, the way they moved, the way they looked. Sort of the alien worlds that we got to see, where there were some underwater moments, there were some like dark caves, like underground caves, obviously avalanches, which it was not in my good section. But just like the variety of the sort of extraterrestrial designs were really good. The lighting effects, weirdly, that's not something we usually call out because most cartoons, especially from like the late 90s, early 2000s, they don't have a major like focus on lighting. But these characters were going into dark places, they were traveling into like deep space, and really all they had was kind of the lights on their helmet. And you've got to animate that. So that actually tracked really well with the characters moving around, shining the light on different things. It's one of those small kind of minor things you don't think of until you're kind of critically looking at it. And I thought the lighting effects were really good. Yeah, I mentioned the cast was really good. I like the conflict between the characters, which you mentioned. We've got kind of these established characters, but it's the way they kind of bump into each other that makes a good show, that makes a good drama. And you've got a love triangle with Dizzy, which we haven't really talked about much, but Dizzy and Rico and Carmen. It's a great love triangle, very frustrating for a lot of different reasons. But you've also got good conflicts with Razak, who's kind of the veteran leader, and Johnny, who's kind of the upstart, who's doing the right thing in his mind, but he's also going against orders half the time. So there's a nice source of tension there. And then one other thing that I just really like was an attention to detail for some of the technology. There's a moment where, spoiler, Johnny gets rescued in space, and rather than just kind of like just grab him and pull him inside, he's running out of air. So they have this little gizmo that just comes out and plugs into his suit and just like pumps a bunch of oxygen into his face, which I was like, that's a clever little inclusion there. I like that.
Yeah, that's fun.
That was fun. I would appreciate that in space because I would hate to be rescued, brought into the hull of a spacecraft, but then just slowly suffocate within my own suit because they didn't give me any oxygen.
Right.
Yeah, it's a rough way to go.
I have to think if I see that on QVC, I'm gonna call now. I'm gonna order that.
Get a 6-pack so we have backups.
Get a 6-pack?
Sure.
Okay.
If you go to Sam's Club,
Perfect.
Get a 6-pack of oxygen infused spaceship wands. I don't know. Space shoots?
Yeah.
Space tubes? That's it for me, bud. That's all the good I got.
All right, let's get into the things that are bad about this. Where do you want to start?
The animation. Have to.
All right, 100%.
Have to.
I'm ready to get into that.
This should not have been a CG animated show, as far as the human characters are concerned. It is, I will say, I'll use one word, and then I'll let you go. Abomination. And we've seen some abominations on this show. I would rather watch the bugs. I would rather spend time, I would rather be eaten by one of these bugs than have to watch these CG animated human approximations anymore. They were rough abominations. How do you think? How do you feel?
I want to note, if somebody's saying, hey, when this show came out, CG was probably still in some of its early stages.
It was still monster by mistake level.
Yeah. This is 1999.
Yeah.
Think about other CGI contemporaries that came out that probably would have gone into pre-production in 97, 98 for a 99 release. And then come back and watch this where you think to yourself, why does every character look like they're like a 70s plastic doll face?
They look like
that's slightly melted.
They're like underbaked dough.
Ugh.
It's bad.
Every character model looks almost identical. The only thing that I think is really kind of a differentiator a little bit is, one, the voice, which we've mentioned is decent.
Yeah.
And two, the hair, which is atrocious.
Doctor, it is. There are moments where it looks like Sid from Toy Story got a hold of one of the Barbie dolls and ripped out some of the hair but left other ones in. So you can see all the holes where the hair should be, but the rest of it's just gone. And that's what they did for some of our hero characters here. Look, if this was an experimental show where they were we're going to figure out CG humans for the first time in history, then okay.
Don't.
But don't do it, please. Reboot, Reboot was bad enough, but they had they were kind of sprites and they were kind of cartoonish still. And yeah, they were humanoid, but they weren't supposed to be technically humans. Even Pixar struggled with that, which is why they kept the humans mostly off screen and just focused on the toys instead back in the mid-90s. But man, it is rough. And they keep coming back to it, and every time it's just cringing. And when they like to zoom in on their faces and do close-ups on their faces, which are horrifying. The teeth, the eyes, everything about it is a nightmare.
You talk about sort of the zoom in and the focus on these animated characters so that we really get to kind of...
You can't avoid it.
You get such a solid glimpse, and they're really brought into focus. You know what's worse than bad CG animation, Dave?
What's that?
Is bad lip syncing.
It's so bad.
Voiceover, good.
Yeah.
Them actually syncing it up to the character models as they're talking. Oh my God,
granted, as you're watching this video,
terrible.
Our voices may or may not match up with our faces. We'll find out. But this is a free production. I would imagine there was at least some money put into Roughnecks. It doesn't show there. Now, granted, maybe they did spend a lot of money on it, and that was the best they could do at the moment. It wasn't good enough. If it was me, I'd have scrapped that. I would have said, we're going to do traditional kind of hand-drawn animation for the human characters because people are used to that. We know we know how to do that. We know what they look like, and people know what they look like. Use the CG for vehicles, for the bugs. I think the bugs look great in CG because they're not supposed to look human. They're supposed to look alien, otherworldly, kind of creepy, and that's what bad CG is good for, to make things look not quite right. And they actually did a really good job with the bugs, the effects, and the lighting there. Just not for the humans, man. It's really tough to do that, and they did not succeed.
And you know what? We get it. This was done by BKN, which is Bobots. So, they've done many cartoons. Yeah. We've watched a lot of them. We get it. As a reference point, in 1999, I know that we talked about Toy Story 2 and the Sid character. Toy Story 2 came out in 1999.
Yeah.
So did this cartoon.
One had millions of dollars. This one,
I don't know how this CG is simultaneously worse than Monsters by Mistake. And if you think about the progress that you would have made since maybe the cartoon Reboot, this looks like it was made 10 years before Reboot had even been created.
Yeah, we give Rainmaker some crap too because there are some clonkety-clonk animations in that series, but this thing makes it look like, bleeding edge, not even cutting edge, like beyond that. It makes it look like Sean said 10 years advanced. It's bad. I don't know how else to put it. It's just bad. And even stuff like the snow, the water, some of those environmental effects are just so bad. At one point it looked like they were floating in like clear gravy. It's just like I get that water is difficult in CG too, but it looked thick. That was some thick water, viscous.
How thick? How
So
many
thick.
C's are
At
in that
least
thick
3
gravy?
C's, 3 capital C's.
Oof.
Rough buds.
That's the kind of gravy that when you dip a spoon in it to test the
Stands
viscosity,
straight up.
it just stands. It just stands there. You just take your hand away and you marvel at how thick that gravy water
That's
is.
some thick gravy.
If somebody said, "Hey Dave
Yeah.
and Sean, we're gonna deploy you to Planet Thick with 3 capital C's gravy," we'd be like, "Get in the suits. We're going right now.
Let's
we're
go.
going right now.
Let's go.
We're on board."
Let's mush my face into this helmet and we're good to go.
And then just warp it like a plastic doll in a microwave.
Yikes.
Where's that? Where's that?
It honestly is like, it took me out of the show multiple times because you're supposed to be facing these threats of like the bugs that are trying to rip you apart limb from limb or just eat you or kill you or whatever. The more horrifying shots were when characters were talking to each other in close proximity. Like if Sean and I were in the same room and we looked like these characters, that would be a horror show. That's what this looked like. I was more terrified by the humans just talking to each other than I was with any of the bug sequences.
Yeah, no, I agree. You mentioned the idea of taking you out of the show.
Yeah.
I want to share something that took me out of the show.
Okay.
Is the flow of action.
I mean, it's tough in a clip show, yeah?
Sure.
But what specifically bugged you?
When you go into a dream sequence as a part of that clip show,
Yeah.
like when you do that flashback and then suddenly you are on a water vehicle, you're knocked off a water vehicle,
Yeah.
and then magically you're on a water vehicle again, and there's been no segue to get you there.
Yeah.
Ooh, buddy, I'll tell you what makes me stop something and rewind a couple times to be like, did I miss something? Where did that go? Like, I'm trying to logically follow how this happened. And yes, I get it. It's a clip show.
Sure.
They cut out a bunch of crap.
Yeah.
But I feel like they cut out a lot of key crap that would have been helpful.
Don't cut out your key crap. It
Yeah.
could have been like a commercial cut. It could have been a cut to commercial and they just used it as a random cut in a clip show. That's tough. I'll give them a break there because that didn't bother me as much as honestly trying to figure out when we were in the present and when we were in the past on a flashback. Because there's nothing to really distinguish or set apart when we're watching Johnny's kind of memories or when we're seeing what's going on in the current time. Because both of them take place with other people's perspectives. So
Yeah.
it's not always like Johnny can be remembering a story where he wasn't present until later on
Yep.
or didn't show up at all. And then other times, obviously, if we're talking about in the present, Carmen is looking for Johnny. That's kind of the main thing. She knows he's missing. She's going against superiors to be like, look, I got to go find him. They're like, just leave him. It's fine. It's just one ape. What do we care? That's the present kind of storyline, is her trying to find him. That's fine. But it was more confusing than it needed to be.
Because Dave, you and I have both written things before.
Yeah.
What's a point of view that you would never write a story in? Would it be second person?
Usually second person, which I absolutely hate.
Yeah.
And I'm not good at.
Which is what a lot of this story is told in.
Yeah.
And it's not done well.
No. Especially when it's like your actual premise is like, oh, I'm dying. Here are my memories. Let me tell you how this broke down from Sean's perspective. It just doesn't make sense. But again,
it'd be
clip
like
show,
me
it's
making
fine.
coffee, and the entire time Dave's just sitting there dying in
Just
space.
floating there
And I'm
dying.
like making coffee, I'm
Mhm.
grinding these beans.
I mean, it is kind of a metaphor for our lives in general anyway, but it's fine.
making coffee or dying in space.
Just slowly dying inside
Oh.
while you make coffee.
I thought you were going to trump me and say second person is just a metaphor for our lives. And I'd be like, wow, either that was profound or I'm just stupid right now.
No, because I don't
after
even
having-
understand it, so no.
God.
No.
Golly.
I'm just a dumb ape.
Ah.
Anything else that didn't work for you here? I mentioned the faces literally every other comment
more.
here. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I've got a couple more
Sure,
things,
what else?
if you'll humor me.
Yeah.
Some of the dialogue.
Okay.
I'm not going to make excuses. Some of this dialogue is really problematic and a little bit sexist.
Oh, sure.
And very weird. There's parts where Rico is saying about Carmen, she will be mine.
Yeah, that's in my LOL for cringy reasons, but yeah, I could see why it's bad too.
Yeah, I some of that was a challenge because for me, this clip show posited that Rico and Carmen were never dating in high school.
Right.
And so everything that we remember from the movie, which
Yep.
is not, that whole backstory isn't necessarily in the book,
Right.
is kind of just thrown away completely as if they're rewriting it. But again, the thing that's interesting, or that's appealing to me as a Starship Troopers fan,
Yeah.
is that this is an amalgam of both franchises. So a bunch of stuff from the novel and a bunch of stuff from the actual 1997 movie.
Sure.
I love that idea. That's super fun. This is like, let's rewrite history. And I don't mean like a DuckTales theme song kind of way. Like, it is Bad News Bears, because you're sitting there thinking to yourself, why is there a love triangle in all of this? What is the impetus for this to take place? And there isn't any.
Yeah.
It's completely devoid of that.
Yeah. I will say that it was
It's
frustrating.
a love line.
It is a love line, which doesn't make sense, and was also a 90s MTV show, if I remember correctly.
Sure was. I think it was Dr. Drew.
Sure was Dr. Drew.
Adam Carolla?
Adam Carolla was there for a bit, I think. Wasn't there a woman, too? Doesn't matter.
I hope so.
But I don't remember. No, so the love triangle line kind of bothered me for another reason. It was a little bit LOL, but it was also kind of bad at the same time, because we're supposed to be in this kind of like, military thriller kind of thing where these guys are in constant threat at all times. Like, their lives are constantly like in danger. But at moments where they were supposed to like almost die, essentially, where there was like no escape, there's no way out, Johnny, specifically, was more concerned with a possible relationship between their former, like, captain of the football team and the prom queen, who was Carmen, than, his mortal peril or like, going to, like, die instantly. So some of that was funny, but it was also just kind of like, why are we focused on, like, high school politics here?
Right. They are in an avalanche.
Yeah.
And he says to you, I don't look at you as a soldier, Carmen. I can't. And she just goes, that's going to get you killed.
Was that Dizzy or Carmen?
I thought that was Carmen.
That would make sense. Yeah, that would make sense.
I don't know at that point, because everybody's baked doll face just blended together.
The only thing that kept it straight for me was Carmen was normally by herself and at the pilot's seat, whereas Dizzy was normally with Rico, wherever he was. But it was hard to keep them straight sometimes.
I don't even know anymore.
Yeah.
Can I tell you my last final pick?
Of course you can.
All right. So we established, sort of the premise of this episode is that he gets knocked off course from a plasma blast.
I know where you're going, yeah.
Gets knocked off course. He gets really worried about that he's not going to get found. And he has 1 minute left of oxygen. And he sees Carmen. He sees somebody fly by in a spaceship. And he's trying to live. And in that final second, he thinks, oh, I'm in space and I still have a gun, and the gun has recoil. I should just use the momentum from the recoil to send me towards the ship, which is successful, thankfully.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you think about that in the first place to course correct after you've been blasted? Like,
Rico's recoil.
I don't want to say this, but man, here's the challenge that I have, is that Rico is promoted at some point in this franchise to be a general.
Yeah. You
would think that there'd be some strategic or critical thinking that took place at any point in time for this character.
I mean, he figured it out eventually.
It doesn't exist, Dave. It is so frustrating. We just watched somebody float, almost die for 20 minutes in space, and he's like, oh, I should just use the recoil in my gun. Oh, my. Maybe you shouldn't have gotten saved.
Ouch.
I don't want to say that, but...
You said it already. Posterity.
It's
been recorded.
It's frustrated, and I love that character, but watching this was just so brutally frustrating, because he's not a dummy. He's not a dumb soldier.
Yeah.
Usually. And they're making him out to be a dumb soldier, and that's what's frustrating to me, is that goes against the grain for who he is as a character.
I guess I'll give them a break on that, because if he would have done it earlier, I think the dropship was already gone, right? There wasn't really anybody else in the vicinity, right? So he had to wait for a rescue ship.
Planet.
Yeah. I think he had to wait for a rescue ship in order to do that.
But other soldiers...
Plus, we had to see 20 minutes worth of memories.
Got it. Oh, got it. We just got to see them memories.
No, I agree with you. Can I tell you one more thing that bugged me?
Please.
Carmen.
Yeah.
Carmen always bugs me. From the movie, I'm assuming she will in the book, and definitely in this series. It just goes back to one of those things where it's like Carmen bothers me, and then Johnny bothers me, and then I feel bad for Dizzy. I've always felt bad for Dizzy, because she's kind of like low man on the totem pole. And then Johnny takes advantage of her, and Carmen takes advantage of both of them, and I really don't like her. So it's difficult to like connect to this character whatsoever in this show, specifically because she looked like Cronenbergian Play-Doh, but also because I don't like her personality. So that's a tough one for me. But I mean, that's the character. So well done.
Can I give you a little spoiler?
Sure. Does she die?
Carmen is not really. She's in the book, but she's not in it as much as you would think.
Okay, I'm all right with that.
I mean, she is part of the reason why he enlists in the book, but she doesn't really come back until later in the novel when she has to deliver some bad news about a friend that gets killed.
Yikes. Well,
And
I should probably read this.
That friend is somebody that you know
It's
from
redacted.
the movie.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting. Okay.
Yes. So
Well, that
I'll leave
doesn't
it at
make
that.
me laugh.
Well, what? Good segue into the LOLs.
Thanks so
Dave.
much, bud.
Ouch.
Thanks. Youch.
All right.
I got some good LOLs. I wasn't sure if I would. I thought this was
Yeah.
going to be a basilisk situation where it wasn't going to be funny.
Yeah, honestly.
There's some actual funny stuff and then some janky funny stuff.
What did you have?
Jet skis made me laugh.
Those are good.
Roughnecks
So
on
good.
jet skis randomly, and like you said, like teleporting jet skis that are there and then gone and then back again.
Oh gosh.
That was fun. I didn't expect them to go underwater and like face off against underwater things. It reminded me of like if you go to a theme park and you go see the stunt show Spectacular,
Yeah.
or if you've ever been to like a military enlistment pomp and circumstance event on the beach, like one of those great extravaganzas. It felt a lot like that. So that was an interesting twist. I didn't expect that.
Again,
Yeah.
I never thought that I could look at a jet ski and be unhappy. And then I watched this show and I thought, oh man, I could think I'm actually unhappy.
No, I like it. Anytime there's jet ski, I'm like, yeah, I'm down. Doesn't make a lick of sense, but I like it.
Yeah.
On Triple Thick Gravy Planet. What made you laugh?
Uh,
Other than Triple Thick Gravy Planet.
there are just some there's a line that Rico says where when he first gets blasted
So bad.
out of orbit
So bad.
and he's kind of on fire, his power suit is sort of on fire, and
Yeah.
he shakes it off in space and just goes, I forgot my sunscreen.
I rolled my eyes. And that's in the first like 30 seconds after the intro, which we didn't even talk about actually. But
Yeah, because it was not good.
It was bad.
It was bad.
Let's put it that way. You had some other lines, one-liners.
th-
I had one,
there-
I think, that I really liked. Yeah.
Just the area equals pi r squared.
Now, set that up, though, because you need context for that.
I don't think you do.
I think you do, because it's like that is just like, okay, fine. I don't know why you're saying that geometric equation for a circle, but what was the setup for it? I'll talk about it because it's in my LOLs.
Please.
It's the football sequence. It's the flashback to their football game.
Just watching it, Dave, I groaned so hard
It's
and
bad.
then just went, yeah, I mean, I guess.
Sure, why not? It's that classic, like, I guess it was funny in, I don't know, maybe the 80s? When do you think that joke first came up? Where you guys know what we're talking about. So if a character goes behind center while they're getting ready for a football play, and instead of like blue 42, set, hike, or hut, hike, or whatever, they say nonsense. They say stuff like, what did Ace Ventura say?
Area equals pi r squared.
Yeah, you can be like Dizzy and say area equals pi r squared and then set hike. Or you can be like Ace Ventura and say blue 42, rover, sit, hike, whatever.
Right.
That joke, I don't think it's ever made me laugh, maybe since Ace Ventura. And it didn't work here either. But the whole football sequence is so janky that it was hilarious. Because they were showing full head-to-toe football uniform, CG animated humans approximating a football play.
And they were trying to make this relatively true to the 97 film.
Right.
With even the colors for the opposing
the color
team.
schemes, yeah.
But then again, it goes back to the bad that I had where they were rewriting history in terms of the Carmen and the love triangle that's essentially there. And, that was a pivotal moment where Rico is playing against Xander. And it's one of the first times where he's able to kind of really like assert dominance and be like, oh, I got this because I'm like super macho. And I say that knowing full well that I like Casper Van Dien. I think he seems like a great dude. Doesn't get enough work. Let's make Starship Troopers 4 and let's slot him in there because that's what I want. But watching them try to recreate a scene that, if you've watched that movie, is very notable. And do it in just just
slapdash. It was a roughie, as we say.
Heartbreaking.
As we say in the industry. One more thing that actually made me laugh.
Yeah.
The music. The music wasn't bad. I'm not saying it because it was bad, but there's a moment where it sounds like the Crystal Method just came on to play an Avalanche song. And I was just like, what is this shift? It was a really interesting, weird, like prog, trancey, rave kind of music during an Avalanche, which was a choice.
Prodigy just showed up at some point and be like, yeah, this
Rest
totally
in
makes
peace.
sense. This is 1999, right?
Yeah, it's 1999.
Yeah.
It was actually, so there was another thing in the end credits. Another song came up and I'm like, I've heard this song before. And it's not because I've watched this show. It's because composer James Latham did the music for this and also did the music for Extreme Ghostbusters, Men in Black, the animated series, and a bunch of other stuff in like the mid to late 90s, early 2000s. That is very similar. To the point that I heard the end credits and I'm like, that's 100% just Men in Black. So I don't know if he just repurposed the same like riffs and samples that he had for that one, but it was not that, but it was real close to the cartoon version, which for some reason always sticks in my head, and now it's going to make it even worse because I got a double dose of it thanks to Roughnecks. But yeah, that made me laugh. I was like, why are they just stealing Men in Black music for this show? It's very strange. Anything else make you laugh, bud?
My final thing is that during one of the flashback sequences, they have Rico and a bunch of other people fighting what looks like face huggers from the Alien franchise.
So tiny and cute, though.
Yeah, very adorable. Yeah. They're attacking, and Johnny Rico kicks like a nurse's cart that's just full, that has just bottles that are just labeled that just say alcohol on them.
Yep.
And he kicks them into a room, and then he shoots them, and the door closes, and then it explodes. And there was a part of me that was like, you know what? Yeah, do it.
Let's
this
just
is
go with
great.
it. Yeah,
I don't care.
Space alcohol works differently.
Oh,
it was fun. That was a fun one.
Right.
That makes sense, but it's a fun one. I think that's it for me. I think I'm exhausted.
I'm exhausted too.
Yeah.
Let's get to our recommendations. If you are listening for the first or the
281st
time, let's break it down very quick. We can recommend a show, and we can say why we think you should watch it, and it's a good use of your time. We can say we don't recommend a show, and we can maybe give you something that you would like. We can give you an extra suggestion.
Sure.
If we don't like a show and we don't recommend it, we can go one step further and we can give this the dip. Yes, the dip from Who Framed Roger Rabbit. We can dip a cartoon. It's a majority rule. We both have to decide that something has happened that is so egregious that it deserves the dip, and it erases it from the annals of cartoon history. We will only ridicule it on this show from that point forward. Oh, Roughnecks, Starship Troopers Chronicles. Dave, how are you feeling? Where do you land on this?
This one's tough. My rule of thumb here, which I don't even know if I can say that anymore, but my kind of instinct is if I'm going to dip something, it should be like a gut reaction. And I don't know if I feel that yet. In good faith, because the animation is so bad, I can't just recommend this to anybody unless you're a diehard Starship Troopers fan that, like Sean, you need to like complete your collection and at least check it out. If you want to see some more adventures with these characters, cool. These adventures are here for you in quite a few episodes. It's a rough watch, though. So the more you like the characters, the harder a time you're probably going to have with how bad the animation really is here. It's that bad. We're not really exaggerating. It's bad. Even giving it the benefit of the doubt for watching it on like a reverse Daily Motion rip from probably 20 years ago and all that, like, it's bad. You can see from the beginning, like, just the production quality that they had was not up to par. That being said, are those extra adventures in this series, are they worth it? Because you've got those 4 movies. You've got, the book to go back to. Do you need these adventures? That I don't know. So I'm gonna dodge for a second and I'm gonna throw it to you because you are the Starship Troopers fan here. So I want to hear what you have to say.
Well, let me address one listener.
Sure.
Aaron J.
Yeah. Your boy.
Hey, it's Sean. It's your boy.
Hey, it's
your boy, Sean.
Your boys.
It's your boy. I'm not recommending this show.
Okay.
Aaron J. I'm sorry. I know you said there's a little bit of weirdness, and you're right. You're very right. And I think if you are a fan of Starship Troopers for the exact same reason that Dave posited the question, do you really need these adventures? I'm saying I do not recommend going and watching these animated series, all of Roughnecks. Don't watch it. Just do yourself a favor instead and go on the wiki that people have put together that has all the information. Read, consume, and enjoy that. Because if you watch this, knowing how much you love those particular characters, you are going to be very frustrated. Rely on the book, rely on the 4 movies that are out there, enjoy those, but I would not recommend Roughnecks. I think if your goal is to get more into the stories and the lore of everything for Starship Troopers in this universe, as we've mentioned, this show is going to frustrate you based off of the material that you already know.
Yeah.
And because of the animation, it's going to take you out of the experience. So
the extra stories aren't worth the experience.
I would say, again, going to the wiki and reading those extra stories, I think are probably pretty interesting. But watching this actual program, I do not recommend it.
Now, I guess the question is, well, A, I have to recommend it or not. I don't think I can. That's an easy one for me. I can't really recommend it just because the quality of the animation is so bad.
Right.
And we got a clip show of it. It's bad through at least those 5 episodes that we watched. I'm assuming it's pretty much the same for the whole series. I don't know if it's dippable, though, so I'll throw it back again to you. Now that neither of us is recommending it, is it dippable? And remember, for things like this, dipping this cartoon does not affect the rest of the franchise. The book still exists. The movie still exists. Everything else is fine. It's just this series will no longer exist. The characters are fine. This universe for their stories will not exist. To Sean's point, I think maybe that's an okay thing. But I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Yeah, I'm torn on this because I do want to dip it. I do want to dip it for all the reasons that I've mentioned. But at the same time, I want to think that the stories that they've created that people have watched and gotten into and have taken to a wiki and logged everything there, I want to say and I want to think that those are probably interesting and those are probably rewarding for somebody to check out. It is impossible, actually impossible, to separate yourself from the 2 camps or 2 ideas of this show versus the book and the movie franchise. And so keeping that in mind and making that distinction, keep the book and the movie franchise, dip Roughnecks.
You're dipping Roughnecks. I feel like
dipping Roughnecks.
I don't have a strong enough opinion kind of one way or the other with this series, but man, the animation is so bad. I don't know, bud. I kind of want to dip it with you in solidarity, but it's not. It doesn't feel like it's there. So okay. I feel like Johnny standing up to Razak and just being like, "No, I'm not gonna do what you say." But I don't know. No, I can't dip it because I don't have that gut instinct to dip it, and it's probably because I don't know enough about the rest of the franchise and the rest of the world and the story universe to know how bad it is. I mean, just on animation quality alone, yeah, it's definitely a dip. But because there are stories that I would still like to kind of see, I don't want to dip it. So it's a half dip, a dip a toe. And that's it.
Fair.
Sorry, but
all right. That's okay. That's
all
right.
You high and dry on the thick
2 don't recommend
beaches of Kondatu.
We've got 2 do not recommends, 1 dip on this. So it doesn't dip it, doesn't completely get rid of it.
No,
but it's a strong do not recommend.
You should still just avoid it. Yeah.
Right. Oh man.
That was an adventure.
That's it.
That was a journey.
I mean, look at how far we have come this entire time, and man, oh man, Aaron J, we want to thank you.
You can't.
Thank you. Bud. Yeah, thank you for sending us on this journey. I don't know if I'm your boy anymore. You'll have to let me know. You'll have to let me know because I'm worried. I'm worried about this now.
We'll find out after the show.
Oh, perfect. All right. Dave.
Yeah.
That's the end. We're not talking about Roughnecks anymore.
No
you know what we are talking about?
What's that?
Talking about going into business. You know who we're talking about going into business with?
Bring in the business. Business Bobby.
Business Bobby. You heard him on this episode. Our friend, best friend of the show, Bobby Anthem. You can hear him on his paranormal podcast, Inhuman Experience, with co-host Bobby Blades. You can find them at Twitter at IEXP_podcast. And Bobby also has a solo show, In Search of My Lost Soul, which is in that exact same Inhuman Experience stream. believe that they're also creating a new show that is called Inhuman Cafe.
Oh, nice.
So you should check out and get a chance to listen to Inhuman Cafe, because I know that that's Bobby. That's also Bobby Anthem. That's also Bobby Blades and their friend from Jay from Conspiracy Cafe. So you can check that out.
I like the crossover. That sounds cool.
As Bobby has explained it to me, it's a bunch of older people not realizing that they are millennials.
Yeah.
And having fun with it. And I've heard some little advanced teasers, and I'm loving it so far.
That
so
sounds about
keep
right.
it up. Go check that out. Dave, what do you got going on?
Same old stuff, bud. You can find me over at collider.com, talking about video games, sometimes movie, TV, animation, all kinds of fun stuff. You can also check me out on Twitter. Talk me up there at Dr. Claw MD. And you can check out my book, The Science of Breaking Bad, available wherever dem books is sold. How about you, bud? What's going on with you during these trying, unprecedented times?
I do live improv comedy in Washington, D.C. with a group that's called Knox. That's N-O-X exclamation point. We've actually been doing shows that you can watch us from the comfort of your own home, in the couch, in a bubble bath,
In the couch.
in bed. Get saucy with it after dark.
After dark.
You can find tickets and times witdc.org. Check us out there. I'm always on Twitter and Instagram at Sean Paul Ellis. If you message me there, if you start following me, just say, hey, I'm a friend of the show. I listen to the podcast. I'll follow you back. I'm not weird about it.
No.
Just let me know. If you're like a private account and you expect me to just like follow you with no context, not going to happen, gang. But I do want to know if you are listening. If you're a friend of the show, keep us posted. Let us know.
Absolutely.
I also have a comedy podcast that's called The Bureau. It answers the question, what do four dum-dums that work for the FBI sound like when they record a podcast during their break time that they have for the Federal Bureau of Investigation? It is done with friends of the show, Jamal Newman, as well as also Isabel Galbraith, that have been on a couple episodes, and our friend Jesse Chimes. Check it out. We're having a lot of fun. I think by the time this comes out, we will have released all of season 2, and we're gearing up to start recording season 3. So that will be out.
Wow, that's huge.
Yeah. So it'll be fun.
Awesome.
Want to support us? Yeah, this show, SMC.
That'd be great.
Man,
thanks.
Go to our Patreon, because guess what? We're actually doing stuff with that money. So that Patreon, hit that Patreon, like and subscribe. I don't know how Patreon works either. Guess what? I also don't know how it works. Apple iTunes, and I don't care.
Still don't.
Don't care. So how can you help us? You could leave a review on Apple iTunes. That's cool. You know what you can also do? If you have a friend that you know would like this show, just share it on social media. Tell your friend.
Or an enemy.
Whatever you want to do. We're cool with that. As always, slide into our DMs, as many of you have from listening to our Salty's Lighthouse episode recently
boy.
about the show
Tugs Bros out
Tugs.
there.
You guys are really getting into it. A lot of Tugs fans, fans coming out of the
I
woodwork
wanna watch
suddenly.
it.
Yeah.
I want to watch it. You guys tell us, get at us, and tell us which episodes we should watch.
Yeah. That Tug Army. Get that Tug Army over here. Tell them Tugs. Tell us to watch Tugs. We'll do it.
We
no
will
worries.
transition to an all Tugs podcast if you guys demand it, and fill up that Patreon.
You guys really blew up our account the other night, so loving every
Really
minute
did.
of it.
It was fun.
Yeah. So slide into our DMs at Morning Tunes. Remember, morning with a U. Check us out on Instagram and Facebook at Saturday Morning Cartoons. Drop us an old-fashioned email, SaturdayMorningCartoons@gmail.com. You can find all the links and everything, even the listener recommendations, in the link tree, which is in the bio for all of our social media sites. And as always, you can listen to us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, Spotify, anywhere fine podcasts are sold. Thank you so much. You guys are now part of Sean and Dave's Roughnecks.
Half dip Roughnecks.
You have to have dip Roughnecks. That's such
the half dips.
I hate everything.
Or the half dips. Can't help it.
It sounds like an ice cream cone, but I'm still interested.
It sounds like a terrible one because half of it's below the surface and half of it's above.
But like half of it's dipped in chocolate and the other half's just like
now
regular ice cream.
Now you're thinking that's
You got to
good.
get that magic shell.
That's good.
Get that magic shell. That's it. Hey, guess
I
what?
miss magic shell.
Thank you guys for listening. We'll talk to you next week.
Go get your magic shell.
Go get your magic shell.
Yeah. I'm going to go right
You
now.
can't put it on your body because your body's
Wear a
too
mask.
hot.
I know, I've tried.
Yeah.
Haven't we all?
Bye.
See you next time.
Hey, everybody. Thanks a lot for listening to Saturday Morning Cartoons. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to transform and roll out.